Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining me again here on the podcast. It's the 19th of September, 2025, and today we need to talk about something that has the potential to reshape crypto as we know it. Because for the first time, altcoins are being given the same stage as Bitcoin and Ethereum in the United States. We're not just talking about speculation anymore. We're talking about regulated investment products, listed on US exchanges, built around XRP and even Dogecoin. The tickers XRPR and DOJE went live today on the CBOE exchange, and the early volume was enormous. Add to that the SEC approving a sweeping rule change that slashes ETF approval times down to as little as 75 days, and we're suddenly staring at a future where Solana, Cardano, and other altcoins could follow suit far sooner than anyone expected. This isn't just another day in crypto news. This is the start of something that could bring Wall Street billions into altcoins, or it could be the start of the biggest hype cycle we've seen yet. Tonight, I'm going to take you through exactly what's happened, why it matters, how it changes the game for XRP, Dogecoin, Solana, and beyond, what the risks are, and what I think the next 6 to 12 months look like now that altcoin ETFs are real. So it's been a strong day for the majors. And what stands out is that two of those coins, XRP and Dogecoin, now have US-listed ETFs behind them. That's a first in history, and it matters more than most people realize. Here's why. Up until now, ETFs were reserved for Bitcoin and Ethereum. They were seen as the grown-ups of crypto, the only assets mature enough, liquid enough, and legitimate enough to warrant regulated investment vehicles. Everything else was pushed aside as too risky, too volatile, or too untested. But with XRPR and DOJE now trading, the line has been crossed. Institutions and retail investors alike can now buy exposure to XRP and Dogecoin through the same brokerage apps they use for stocks and bonds. Pension funds, retirement accounts, endowments. They all now have a path to altcoin exposure without having to touch a wallet or a crypto exchange. That's not just convenient. That's transformative. Because if history has shown us anything, it's that when you make an asset easy to access, capital follows. Look at what happened with gold ETFs. Look at what happened with Bitcoin ETFs earlier this year. In both cases, once the wrappers were in place, the inflows came, and the legitimacy argument flipped overnight. Now that's happening with XRP and Dogecoin. It's important to be clear, though, these aren't pure spot ETFs in the strictest sense. Because they're structured under the 1940 Act, they include some diversification and derivative exposure alongside the underlying asset. So XRPR holds a majority in XRP, but balances with other products to satisfy regulatory standards. Same for Dogecoin. That means performance might not be identical to holding the coins directly. There will be management fees. There will be small tracking differences. But for the vast majority of investors, that won't matter. What matters is that they can finally get exposure in a regulated, accessible, institutional-grade way. And the timing of this couldn't be bigger. Because alongside these launches, the SEC approved new generic listing standards for spot crypto ETFs. That's a mouthful, but what it means is simple. In the past, every ETF application had to be reviewed individually. That process took months, sometimes almost a year, and was filled with uncertainty. Now, if a coin meets the eligibility requirements, things like existing futures markets, sufficient market surveillance, and trading volume, the ETF can go live in as little as 75 days. That's a massive acceleration, and it opens the door to a flood of altcoin ETFs. Solana, Cardano, Avalanche, Chainlink, many of them already have applications pending. Now, instead of waiting a year, they could be trading before Christmas. So where does this leave us? Let's talk about XRP first. XRP has been through the wars. Years of SEC battles, endless debates over its classification, doubts over whether it would ever break through into mainstream finance. Today, it has. A Ripple ETF is live on a US exchange. Whatever else you say about Ripple or XRP, that is legitimacy at a level we've never seen before. And for Dogecoin, a coin that started as a joke, this is equally staggering. Wall Street now has a Dogecoin ETF, with millions of dollars of trading volume within hours of launch. If you told anyone that 5 years ago, they'd have laughed you out of the room. But this isn't just about bragging rights. It's about money flow. The big question now is, how much capital actually moves into XRPR and DOJE? When the Bitcoin spot ETFs launched, we saw initial hype, then a cooling off period, then billions in institutional inflows that drove the market to new highs. If the same pattern repeats here, XRP and Dogecoin could see significant price appreciation. Already today, XRP has been trading around $3.12, and Dogecoin at 28.5 cents. Those numbers could move quickly if demand builds. The next thing to watch is tracking performance. Will these ETFs trade in line with the underlying coins, or will we see premiums and discounts? If XRPR trades at a premium, it shows institutions are hungry for exposure and willing to pay extra for the regulated version. If it trades at a discount, it suggests caution. Either way, that spread will be a key indicator of sentiment. Then there's the derivatives angle. The CME has already announced it will launch options on XRP and Solana futures on October 13th. That's just weeks away. Once those options are live, institutions will have the ability to hedge, speculate, and leverage positions in XRP, just like they do with equities or commodities. That's when the real financial machinery kicks in. And when you combine ETFs, futures, and options, you're talking about full integration into the traditional financial system. That's a different ballgame than XRP has ever played before. Of course, we need to balance the hype with some reality. These products come with risks. They're hybrids, not pure spot, so performance might diverge. Fees will reduce returns. XRP and Dogecoin are still volatile, and nothing about being in an ETF makes them stable. And if inflows disappoint, prices could just as easily drop. The hype is enormous, and when expectations run too far ahead, corrections follow. We saw it with Bitcoin ETFs, we saw it with gold ETFs, and we could see it again here. But even with those caveats, today is a turning point. Altcoins are no longer knocking on the door of Wall Street. They're inside, and that changes everything. Institutions that once ignored or dismissed XRP now have a regulated product they can hold. Retail investors who didn't want to touch exchanges now have exposure in their brokerage accounts. And regulators who once hesitated have now paved the way for faster approvals. So what comes next? I think we're going to see a wave of new filings and approvals. Solana is likely next, with its futures market already in place and options coming in October. Cardano could follow. Avalanche, Chainlink, maybe even smaller coins if they can prove the volume and surveillance requirements. Within months, we could see an altcoin ETF landscape that mirrors the diversity of the coins themselves. And that raises the big question. What happens to prices when billions in institutional capital have a green light to flow into altcoins? Do we see XRP finally push to $5, $10, maybe more? Does Dogecoin rally past its old highs on nothing but meme power backed by Wall Street money? Do Solana and Cardano surge on ETF inflows the way Ethereum did? Nobody knows for sure. But one thing's clear. The possibility is on the table now in a way it never has been before. So as we wrap this deep dive, remember this. Today was not just about two tickers going live. It was about the SEC shifting its stance. It was about altcoins stepping into the same regulated arena as Bitcoin and Ethereum. And it was about setting the stage for what could be the most significant wave of institutional adoption crypto has ever seen. Let me know what you think. Is this the beginning of a Wall Street-fueled altcoin boom? Or just another hype cycle waiting to fade? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like if you're bullish, and make sure to follow so you don't miss the next big update. And as always, protect your crypto, grab a ledger with the link in the description, and we will see you at the top.